The phone vibrated in Michael Harper's hand at the exact moment he realized his mistake, and the weight of it hit him harder than any overdue bill ever had. He stood barefoot in his narrow kitchen in a quiet Ohio suburb, the glow of the screen lighting up the tired lines on his face, knowing he had just sent a flirty, half-joking message meant for a dating app match to the coldest, most untouchable CEO he worked for. His heart thudded as if it wanted to escape his chest. If this were you, a widowed single parent barely holding life together, would you laugh it off and hope for mercy, or would you feel the way Michael did now, like one wrong breath could collapse the fragile structure you had built for your child? Michael's life had been stitched together by responsibility and quiet grief. At 37, he was raising his 8-year-old son, Noah, alone since a highway accident had taken his wife 3 years earlier. Every day followed the same pattern of school lunches, laundry folded late at night, and spreadsheets filled with numbers that barely made sense after midnight exhaustion set in. He worked remotely for a powerful logistics company based in Chicago, answering to Ruth Caldwell, a name spoken in hushed tones during meetings, a woman known for her razor-sharp emails and complete emotional distance. Michael had never met her in person, and that distance felt safer. She existed on a screen, behind deadlines and performance metrics, far removed from the chaos of his real life. That night, after Noah finally fell asleep clutching his mother's old sweater, Michael allowed himself a moment of weakness. He opened a dating app he barely used, scrolling without hope, just trying to feel like a man again instead of a tired shadow. When a message popped up, his thumbs moved faster than his brain, typing something playful and warm, something about wishing he could cook dinner for someone and laugh about burnt pasta. He hit send without checking the contact name. The realization came seconds later when Ruth Caldwell's name stared back at him. His breath left his lungs. He imagined losing his job, losing the health insurance that kept Noah's inhalers paid for, losing the last thread of stability he had left. 5 minutes passed like 5 hours. Michael sat at the small kitchen table, elbows pressed into worn wood, staring at the door as if expecting consequences to knock. He thought about how easily one mistake could erase years of quiet effort. What if this happened to you, when you were already living on the edge? Would you beg for forgiveness, or accept whatever came? His phone remained silent, and somehow that felt worse than an immediate reprimand. Then the doorbell rang. Michael's legs moved on instinct, his mind blank with fear. When he opened the door, the world tilted. Ruth Caldwell stood on his porch, the evening air brushing her tailored coat, her expression unreadable yet unmistakably human. She was not the icy presence from video calls but a woman with tired eyes and a guarded posture, standing in the dim light of a modest neighborhood. She had driven 2 hours without warning, following an address pulled from company records she had sworn never to misuse. Something in that message had cracked her composure, stirred a loneliness she had buried under decades of ambition. The minutes that followed unfolded quietly, without raised voices or accusations. Ruth stepped inside a home filled with small shoes by the door and crayon drawings taped to the fridge. She noticed the framed photo of a smiling woman Michael couldn't bring himself to put away. Michael noticed how Ruth's gaze softened, how the armor she wore at work loosened in the presence of real life. He explained himself in halting, apologetic words, his shame laid bare. Ruth listened, really listened, something she rarely allowed herself to do. She admitted, in her own careful way, that the message had startled her not because it was inappropriate, but because it was kind. Over the next hour, 2 wounded adults shared the quiet truth of their lives. Ruth spoke of climbing corporate ladders while sacrificing relationships, of a penthouse apartment that echoed with emptiness. Michael spoke of love lost, of learning to braid hair for school plays, of fear that he would never be enough for his son. There was no romance blooming in that moment, only recognition. 2 people who had been surviving instead of living finally saw each other without titles or expectations. Ruth left that night without promises, but something fundamental shifted. The next week, Michael did not receive a termination notice. Instead, he received flexibility, understanding, and an invitation to bring his whole self to work. Ruth, in turn, began questioning the walls she had built. They met again months later, slowly, carefully, in public spaces filled with sunlight and noise, letting trust grow at its own pace. Noah watched from the sidelines, curious but cautious, learning that kindness could arrive unexpectedly. Life did not magically become easy. Michael still struggled, still counted dollars and battled exhaustion. Ruth still faced pressure and lonely nights. But both had changed, softened by an accident that forced honesty into their lives. They learned that sometimes the bravest thing is not perfection, but vulnerability, and that second chances often arrive disguised as mistakes. Before the story ends, take a moment to share in the comments what you would have done if you were standing in Michael's place that night. If this story stirred something in your heart, gently reminding you of the power of grace, kindness, and unexpected second chances, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing so more stories like this can reach those who need them most.